Hey guys, so I'm just gonna go over some of the review questions for you because you're gonna try taking the test hopefully this week on ALEKS. So I want to go over how to do a lot of the problems. Remember, this review is in the same order as the test, so I'll go over a couple of those with you. The first one is a picture of a right triangle. They give you a couple of things and you have to find the last. One of the things they give you is a leg, and another thing they give you is the hypotenuse of the triangle. And you have to find out what x is, which is one of the legs. So for this one, you're going to use the Pythagorean theorem, which you may remember is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So you're going to say, well, one of the legs is 9 squared, plus another one of the legs is x squared, is equal to 13 squared. And then you just do out the math from here. So 9 squared is 81, plus x squared is equal to 169. You're going to minus the 81 from both sides. So you have 169 minus 81 is 88. So right now we have x squared is equal to 88. And then remember, to get rid of an x squared, you need to square root it. So on the calculator, you're literally going to press the second button. And remember, this is if you have the Calculate 84 app on your phone, which you have to make sure that when you do have this Calculate 84 app that you hit mode. Oh, let me erase that and rewrite it. When you do have the app, make sure that you hit the mode button first when you first open the app, and then scroll down until you see radians, and you're going to switch it over to degrees. So make sure that you hit that before you start doing any calculations. If you're on that app, then you would hit the second x squared button to get the square root, and 88 goes on the inside. So you'd say second x squared, and if I put 88 on the x side, on the inside of that square root button, then I will get 9.38 as my answer. So for the first question on your test, you're going to get a problem like this, and you're going to have to put it into the calculator. So make sure that you're using the square root button in the calculator. The next question is just kind of a review. It's not going to be on the actual test, but it's a review of how to punch it into the calculator. So again, it wants you to use the ALEKS calculator, which you can use on the test as well. They'll have that calculator in the corner, I believe. And you're going to hit, but if you're using the Calculate 84 app, you're going to hit second x squared, and then you're going to punch in 140. So if I use that on my app, then I would get 11.83 as my answer for that one. Okay. The second question on the test will be very similar to the first. You're still going to use the Pythagorean theorem, but now it's going to be a picture instead of just a triangle, a picture of a right triangle. Now it's actually a picture with a kite. That's literally the only difference there. So remember, 11 is the leg, and 12 is the hypotenuse in this case. So we're going to say 11 squared plus x squared is equal to 12 squared, similar to the first one. So 11 squared is 121 plus x squared is equal to 12 squared is 144. We're going to minus the 121 from both sides, and we have x squared is equal to 23. And then remember, to get rid of the square, you got to square root it. So on the calculator, we're going to hit second x squared and punch in 23 and round your answer to the nearest tenth. So that would be 4.8. Okay, so first two questions on the test are just the Pythagorean theorem. So on to the next page. The next couple questions on the test are setting up fractions as answers. So they want you to find the trigonometric functions, the sine, cosine, and tan of a certain angle. They're going to name the angle. And all you have to do is tell me what the fractions are for that angle. And so that's why on your little help sheet that I provided to you, you have SOHCAHTOA written at the top so that you can remember how to set up your trig functions. So since it's talking about A, I'm just going to point out that we're talking about this angle A right here. So first I'm going to label the picture of the triangle with what is opposite, what is adjacent, and what is hypotenuse. So 8 in relation to A, or angle A, is the opposite. 15 is the adjacent, and 17 is the hypotenuse. So we're just going to set up our fractions. Sine is the so we're going to say the opposite is 8 over the hypotenuse is 17. Cosine is ka, so we're going to say the adjacent is 15 over the hypotenuse is 17. And tan is toa, so we're going to say that the opposite is 8 and the adjacent is 15, and then you're done. Okay, so that's the third question on the test. The fourth question on the test is the same exact thing, except instead of using numbers, we use letters. So we still have to find sine, cosine, and tangent of that angle that is marked x. So again, we should label it first. C is opposite of x, A is adjacent to x, and B is the hypotenuse of the entire triangle. So SOHCAHTOA. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so we're going to say C over B. Cosine is ka, which is adjacent over hypotenuse, so we're going to say A over B. And tan is toa, which is opposite over adjacent, so C over A, and you're done. Now, you're not going to see an example. Oh, actually, no, this is going to be another question on the test where you're literally just going to have to punch this into the calculator. So again, make sure if you're using that Calculate 84 app on your phone that you hit mode, and then you scroll down till you see degree, and you make sure you select it. And then once you hit clear, you can go back to your main screen. So make sure that your calculator is in degree mode. So if I just punch in cosine of 32, now that my calculator is in degree mode, I get 0.85. And I'm going to punch in sine of 47 is 0.73. And I'm going to punch in tan of 89, and that's 57.3. So make sure that you are getting the same amounts as me as you punch it in. Number 7 on the review is not going to be on the test, but I just wanted to give you guys a reminder of how to solve certain ones. Now, these are perfect squares, so when you have the square root of a perfect square, is going to come out to a number. So the square root of 36 is just 6, okay? Now, on the next page here, we have another reminder of how to simplify a square root. So remember, when we're trying to simplify a square root, like the square root of 27 here, we're going to break it down into a perfect square factor. Since 27 is the same thing as 9 times 3, or the factors of 27 are 9 and 3, and 9 is a perfect square, we know that the square root of 9 is 3, so we put it out front, and then we're left with the square root of 3 still. So that's how we would rewrite the square root of 27. And that's called simplifying a radical. So you got to remember how to do that for the test. Not necessarily have a question on the test like that, but remember how to do it. Also, I'm going to skip to number 10 because I need to remind you of how to do this as well. This is rationalizing the square root. So remember, when you have a square root in the bottom, you're not done. In order to get rid of it in the bottom, we have to multiply it by the top and the bottom. So we're going to take that square root of 3. We're going to multiply it by the top and the bottom. And then the top is going to become the square root of 21 because we did 7 times 3 on the inside over 3. So when we multiply a square root by itself, then it just becomes that number. So that's how you simplify it in the denominator. So now that you got a little reminder of that, we're going to come back to this question here. This question will probably take you, is probably the most work, but you can use, again, the help sheet to help you set up your proportion. So remember, you're always going to be, for this one, you're going to be setting up a proportion and cross multiplying. Okay, and that's how you're going to find both of these answers. Okay, so the first one's a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So I will tell you, I'm just going to write what the cheats are here. In a 45, this side is 1, this other leg is 1, and the hypotenuse is the square root of 2. Okay, so if we set up a fraction here or proportion here, we can say, okay, 1 over the square root of 2, because I took those from both those two spots right there, okay, is equal to what's like 1 is 4, because it's on the same side as the 1, over b, which is on the same side of the square root of 2. And if I cross multiply that, watch what we get. We get b equals 4 square roots of 2, and we're done with that one. So that was your easy setup, okay? And then with the 30, 60, 90 triangle, it's a little bit different. So if I label that one, the short leg is 1, the long leg is the square root of 3, and the hypotenuse is 2 in a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So let's set up a proportion that way. So let's say I put 1 over the square root of 3, because those are the two parts that we are given in the 30, 60, 90 on our help sheet. I'm going to set that equal to, well, 1 is like a on our triangle, and square root of 3 is like 7 on our triangle. So now watch what happens when we cross multiply. We get a times the square root of 3 is equal to 7. Since a is being multiplied by the square root of 3, the only way that I can get rid of it in order to solve for a is by doing the opposite. So I'm going to divide by the square root of 3. Okay, but you're going to see that we are not done. So far we have a equals 7 over the square root of 3. But this is not done, because just like we did in number 10, we have to rationalize the denominator. So let me scroll down so you can see it. Notice what we did. We multiplied by the square root of 3 in both spots. So we're going to do that same thing here, because it happens to be the same number in the bottom. Now when we write our final answer, it's going to be 7 square roots of 3. So the 7 just comes on the outside, over 3. Now that is our final answer. So I believe we're on like what, the 5th or so question on the test is going to have this type of answer in it, where you're going to have to rationalize the denominator. So that's why you had a little bit of a review there. Okay. All right, so the last couple questions on the test are going to deal with angles and the trig functions, okay? So cosine, tangent, sine. So the first one, or I guess it's probably about the 9th or 8th question on the test, asks for the cosine of theta. Okay, so here's theta. And remember, cosine is ka, adjacent over hypotenuse. So let's label what we've got so far. So far, in relation to the theta, we have 8 is the adjacent side, and 15 is the opposite side. So what we don't know is what h is. And in order to be able to find the cosine of theta, we need to know what h is. So we're going to use Pythagorean. Okay? So we're going to find that third side. We're going to find the hypotenuse. So remember, we're going to set it up so that it's 15 squared plus 8 squared, since those are both our legs, is equal to x squared. We don't know what the hypotenuse is. So 15 squared is 225 plus 8 squared is 64. And if we add those together, then we get 289. And remember, in order to get rid of a square, you square root. So if we second x squared 289 on our calculator, then we should get x is 17. Then when we go to write, now that we know the hypotenuse is 17, we can write our answer. We would say cosine of theta equals, the adjacent is 8, and the hypotenuse is 17. Done. Okay? So really all that question involves is doing the Pythagorean and then writing your answer. In the next couple questions, you're going to have to use the sine, cosine, or tangent functions given what the angle measure is, and you're going to use your calculator. So again, make sure that calculator is in degree mode, okay? So you're going to have to label the picture to see what it is that you're going to use for a trig function. So in relation to the 33-degree angle, the x is the adjacent side, and then the 7 is the hypotenuse of the triangle. So knowing that we have a and h, we know that we're going to use ka, which is cosine. So we say cosine of 33 is equal to adjacent is x over hypotenuse is 7. So remember, put this over 1 and cross multiply. So we have x equals 7 times the cosine of 33. And then this is the calculator. So we're going to punch in 7 times cosine 33, hit enter, and our final answer is 5.9. Done. Okay. The next one is the same exact thing, and it also involves the calculator and a trig function. Okay. So you just have to set it up based on what you're given. So in relation to 62, we're given that this is 95, and that's opposite of 62. Also in relation to 62, we're given that this is, we don't know what it is, it's called x, and that's the hypotenuse of the triangle. So that tells us we're going to use SO, or sine. So we say the sine of 62 is equal to, opposite is 95, over hypotenuse is x. So let's put it over 1 and cross multiply, but watch what happens here. When we cross multiply, we get x times sine of 62 is equal to 95. Now, in order to get x by itself, we're going to have to do the opposite. So we're going to divide by the sine. Divide by the sine of 62 on both sides. And then that's what you're going to put into your calculator to get our final answer. So our final answer for this one is going to be 95 divided by sine of 62. And it should pop out to be 107.6. Okay, and then the last couple of questions on the test are these last two. And these ones are finding angle measures. So remember, when we're trying to find an angle measure according to the cheat sheet that I gave you, or the help sheet that I gave you, we need to either use the Calculate 84 app, making sure it's in degree mode, or we can use the ALEKS calculator as well. But this is what you're going to be doing. You're going to be hitting second and whatever the function is. So we need to figure out what the trig function is based on what they give us again. So in relation to x, 11 is a, and 12, or the adjacent side, and 13, is the opposite side. So that tells us we're going to use TOA. So if I set this up for myself, I'm going to say tan of x is equal to 13 over 11. Okay? So this is where you plug it into the calculator. You're going to put, if you're in the Calculate 84 app, this is what you would do. You would say second tan, so second tan, and then you're going to punch in 13 divided by 11, and that's going to pop out an answer for you in degree mode, 49.8 degrees, okay? If you're using the ALEKS calculator, then what you're going to do is you're going to hit the tan inverse button, so this one on your ALEKS calculator, and then you're going to punch in the 13 divided by 11 as well, and you should get the same answer. So the last question on the test is a one like this, which is just a picture and a lot like the previous question. You're going to be using the second and whatever function it is. So label what you got. You've got 16 is the hypotenuse of the right triangle, and in relation to x, 15 is opposite. So since we've got O and H, we must use sine. So we'd say sine of x is equal to, opposite is 15, over hypotenuse is 16. So again, doesn't matter which calculator you use. If you're using the Calculate 84 app on your phone, then you're going to hit second, sine, and 15 divided by 16. And then you should get x equal to 69.6 degrees. And again, if you use the ALEKS calculator, you're going to hit the sine inverse button that looks like this if you're using the ALEKS calculator. Okay, so you're going to try this out in the review. Your review is going to look a little different because I only printed one copy of the review. So you're going to have the same types of questions, but they're going to be a little bit different. So try it out and let me know how you do. All right, good luck.